Good evening and welcome to the May 12, 2021 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. Thank you for those of you who are here in person, and welcome to the people who may be watching either live at home or on video this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd.
Present.
Peters. Garcia. Trethewey.
Here.
Arnshorst. Here. Corbin. Hoekstra.
Here.
Raymond. Here. Mayor Box.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to start this evening, as we have for many years, first with an opening prayer, this evening by Councilmember Byrd, immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We would ask that if you would like to, that you would join us. Quincy.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to ask you to pray with me if you'd like. Father, we thank you, first of all, for this day. I just want to take a moment to thank you for so many things that we may take for granted. So many things right now going on in the world that take our attention away from humanity, from each other, from a relationship with you. So first of all, I want to thank you for my eyesight, to be able to look around at this beautiful time of the year, especially in Holland, to see the tulips. Thank you for my hearing, to be able to hear people who are talking to me. Thank you for my tongue, to be able to talk to those who are talking to me, and to even lend a hello to someone who hasn't even spoke to me. Thank you for my feet that carry me throughout this city and around places that I do go. Thank you for the opportunity to meet new people and to converse again with those who I do know. Thank you for the opportunity to put love in my heart, that I may distribute that to people in our community and people around wherever I am. And Lord, thank you for relationships. We find ourselves in the city of Holland with a diverse group of people, people who I may not agree with, people who I may agree with, and I have the opportunity to build those relationships. So I thank you for that. I thank you, Father, for the opportunity to sit on this council. Out of this whole community, there's 9 of us. So we get the opportunity to speak for our neighbors, our community members. And so with that big privilege, I say thank you, and I don't look at it lightly. Thank you for serving on this council with the people who are here. And Lord, even those who don't believe in you or won't acknowledge you, and those who do love you, I just pray that we continue to build relationships, that we may make this community better than it is even though that may be hard at times. I just pray that we continue to move in the path that's pleasing to you and that lifts you up and helps our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Quincy. Next item is our consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are considered to be fairly routine. They have been previously reviewed by council in the council packet and will be enacted with one motion unless a member of the public or a member of council asks for an item to be removed from the consent agenda, and it will then be placed in its regular order as part of the regular agenda. Before we ask for that, Kathy, would you please review the consent agenda items for us?
4A, absence excused, Councilmember Garcia. 4B, approval of minutes. April 14th regular and budget review study sessions. April 15th budget review study session. April 21, regular and study session, and April 28, 2021 study session. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, barricade agreement with City of Zeeland. 4E, city clerk, claims filed against the city. 4F, city clerk, annual license renewal 2021-2022, adopt resolution. 4G, finance, February financial report. 4H, finance, Holland LDFA Smart Zone, contract regarding Smart Zone administrative services. 4I, finance, Holland LDFA Smart Zone, approval of fiscal year 2022 budget. 4J, public safety services, approval of lease agreement with Grand Valley State University. 4K, management administrative services, International Relations Commission, Michigan Humanities Council, grant submittal. 4L, management administrative services, appointment of staff liaison to Sustainability Committee and Sustainability Materials Management Task Force. 4M, management administrative services, revocable license agreement, projecting sign 224 South River Ave.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any members of the public who would like an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none. Any member of council that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none there either. What is council's pleasure in regard to the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt agenda as presented.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Aaronsworth. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters. Yes. Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnsworth.
Yes.
Corbin. Yes. Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Next is public comment. Under the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan, we provide an opportunity for public comment at every one of our, not only city council meetings, but every board, committee, and commission meeting that we have. Gives the public the opportunity to speak to council and to speak to those boards, committees, and commissions. And when I say speak to, I say that deliberately. This is one-way communication from you to us. We do not answer questions during this time. We don't engage in debate during this time. And we do ask that you address your comments directly to us. In our regular meetings, we limit public comment to 5 minutes per person. And we ask that you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And we do have 3 lights on the dais in front of me. There is a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. The green light means you're doing very well on time. The yellow light means you have 1 minute left. And the red light means that your time has expired. And we are very strict about that. We'd ask that you adhere to that. So with that, is there anyone here who would like to address council at that time? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mike Fitzharris, Fitzharris. I live at 1443 Cimarron Drive in Holland, 49423.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to comment on the social district event that you guys are going to be voting on soon. Number one, I'm with Hops at 84 East, downtown here. We've been downtown since 1993. We had the A Street Grill before that, so we've been downtown for 30 years now. I've been on the PSD board for a couple of terms, did some time on the DDA. So we have quite a bit of experience downtown, and I wanted to give my input on the social district because I know that there's probably some concerns with enforcement, and there's probably some concerns that maybe people will be drinking and doing things they shouldn't be doing. All valid concerns. I think what people need to understand, it's really about, for us, and I think for all the other restaurants down here, it's about the experience that people have when they come downtown. That's what the PSD has been working for the last 20 years. That's what the DDA does to try to enhance the experience. We feel rather strongly that this will enhance people's experience because right now, there's long wait times to get into a restaurant. I think everybody's experienced that. And it's very difficult to try to explain to somebody, especially out of town, because a lot of areas in Michigan now, there's 26 counties and 46 cities that have a social district. Matter of fact, the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have been coming into the restaurant thinking that we already have one. We have to explain to them we don't have one. It's really not about people coming downtown to drink. It's hard for me to imagine that anybody is going to come downtown and say, let's go downtown and walk around town in a loop and drink. It's not a party atmosphere. It's really, the downtown is really about families. I mean, 95% of our business is large tables, families, everything from grandmothers to strollers, and it's not about drinking. The drinking is really secondary. They come down here to have a good experience, to shop, and to dine. And if they have to wait an hour and a half or 2 hours to get a table, which could be normal this summer, even if we get our capacity back at some point, there's going to be so much demand that in order to enhance the experience, so you can say to somebody, well, you can get a drink, you can take a little walk around the block, and we'll call you when the time is ready, is going to really enhance the experience. It's going to be something that a lot of towns are doing, as everybody knows. That's not a reason to do it, but it's certainly a reason to think about it, because when people come downtown Holland and they have a good experience, they tell other people, that brings more people back. And if you're downtown and you're waiting an hour and a half or 2 hours, which is not unusual, we've had up to 3.5, 4 hour waits the last few weekends. We expect that to continue for quite a while. It's going to really help if we can tell somebody, here, we can give you a drink. Here's the area where you can go. You can relax and just, wait an hour, hour and a half, whatever it takes. You got a better chance of hanging on to that person, the better chance they're going to have a good experience. I really doubt that there's going to be a lot of people, besides people that are already coming downtown to have an experience, that are going to want to come downtown and get a drink and walk around. It's just not even logical if you think about it. I don't think it's anything that anybody here would do. I certainly wouldn't do it. We protect our liquor licenses very fiercely. Many times people come in that we don't think should be drinking, and we don't even give them a drink because they've already had too much. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. The other thing is, we have a very good relationship with all the restaurants downtown. If this would go in effect, I think we would all have a communication system set up that if we cut somebody off or somebody comes in that we don't think should be drinking, we would alert all the other restaurants so they would be aware. Mr. Johnson in the green shirt with the funny hat, we're not serving them. So we have a good communication downtown. We all respect the laws. Nobody
Mr.
here
Mayor, that's
wants to
been
lose
5
their
minutes.
license.
Thank you very much. Time has
Thank you.
expired. Appreciate it. I didn't. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Shauna Hood, S-H-A-W-N-A. I live at 3429 Harvest Way Court in Hamilton. I am here to represent New Holland Brewing Company on behalf of the Social District. Reason why I feel that this should be approved is it could be very beneficial for all the restaurants involved, retail included. During these very difficult times, the last 13 months, it has been a struggle for our business. We have had to deal with no indoor seating, or now to a limited of 50% capacity. For our restaurant in particular, it's only 100 people, so we're only at 20% capacity for our restaurant. Thank goodness for outdoor seating, and thank you for the approval of allowing us to use parking spaces so we can have seat additional people outside. Because of the limited capacity and guests are not able to sit indoors, so they're not able to wait for their table inside, as Mike was talking about. They have to stand outside or go out to their car or stroll the streets. When in times past, they've been able to grab a drink from the bar, be able to go back and sit in the waiting area and enjoy themselves then and sit and relax and talk with their family. We're hoping instead of, since we're not able to do that, that you're able to allow us to have them go outdoors, enjoy their drink, stroll the streets. We understand that there can be some concerns with additional trash or people being, have been overserved. I can assure you that with New Holland, we make our employees go through a Serve Safe training program, which then they are certified and they have to be tip certified. In this, they are able to recognize when a guest is intoxicated or shouldn't be served, or if there's any other inconsiderate things that are being said. So we do take our liquor license, obviously very personally, as it could jeopardize our business if we weren't to have it. So we do believe that with the over 40 communities that are already doing it and doing it really well, I can also assure you that we are doing this in Grand Rapids with our location in Grand Rapids, and we've also started to do it with our location in Saugatuck in the tasting room that we have there. All have been very successful. The communities have supported us very well with doing that. It has helped us stay afloat with our businesses right now. In Grand Rapids, instead of there being 3 different districts, because it's been so successful, it's now into one social district. So everybody is able to walk through Grand Rapids freely with a beverage in their hand. In Saugatuck, it's now been in place for just over a month. And again, it has helped us extremely well in that because we are only able to seat 12 people indoors in our tasting room. So instead of being able to seat up to 30, we can only seat 12. So having those people be able to stop in, get a drink while they're waiting for their dinner reservation across the street, it helps us as well. And while the city has approved, again, the additional seating outdoors with the parking spaces and helping with retail, social districts we feel, again, will be just extremely beneficial for us. We already saw demand for it during tulip time with guests that came into the building already thinking that we did do social districts and telling them no because they have it in their district and we don't have it in ours. It was hard for them to understand that we don't do that and why we don't do it. So I just ask for your approval in helping our business as well as the other businesses downtown during this extremely difficult time for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hood. Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? You may come forward while the city manager is cleaning the podium.
Yes, my name is Jeff Genova, Genova. I live at 6070 Blue Star Highway in Saugatuck. I'm here representing Big Lake Brewing on 13th West 7th Street and the PSD board. I'd like to reiterate what Mike and Shauna said. This social district, which we hope that you approve, will help us to accommodate the guests that come to our beautiful city. I love Holland. I think it's the most fantastic place. I've lived here for 3.5 years, and I chose to move here from far away. Let people walk around and enjoy our city and not be stuck in their car or frustrated because they can't get a seat at a restaurant. We were on a 4-hour wait on Saturday. Sunday, it was a 3.5-hour wait. Most nights, we're on at least an hour wait to give these people a seat. And I understand the way that the social district is written now, that we're not going to be able to do it during events unless it's applied for. But the rest of the during the summer, even when we're at 100%, we're still at 30 and an hour wait for these for our tables. And we would love to be able to have someone come in, since they can't wait inside in our waiting area, that they could go walk around, enjoy the city, go to the retailers. On the PSD board, all the retailers that are on there have very much said that they would also look forward to having the social district. Their wife could go in and shop while the husband's walking around on the streets with having a drink, enjoying themselves, and they're not just frustrated waiting. This is something that we think will work very well with the city. I've talked to Shauna and Mike about some opportunities to do maybe recyclable cups or something that would reduce some of the trash that's involved with this as well. We're very cognizant of our liquor license, like Mike and Shauna have said. All of our staff goes through tips training as well. We're very cognizant. We have a good relationship with all the other restaurants. If someone was intoxicated or someone was causing an issue, we would definitely could communicate that easily to all of the other restaurants. I don't want to take any more of your time. They said it very well, what we would like to have happen. We appreciate your time and the council, everything that you do for us today, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Genova. Please come forward. And also, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jared DeYoung, Jared Deyoung. I live at 190 East 24th Street. Thank you for letting me speak today, and Mr. Bird, I really appreciate your prayer this evening. Believe it or not, I am the proud father of two. Like all parents, I want the best for my kids. Fortunately, we live in a clean city with good education, relatively low crime, kind neighbors, and stable businesses, and a lovely downtown. This is and has been an excellent place to raise children. Unfortunately, the prosperity we have achieved is uncertain, and my children may not experience the same prosperity we have throughout our lives. With steadily increasing average temperatures, increasing sporadic rainfall, and more horrific storm events, the supply chains which bring us a constant supply of food and consistent business will be stretched to their breaking point. The best sources I can find indicate that greenhouse gases are to blame. While this problem is a global one, we Hollanders, with our heavy dependence on fossil fuels, have contributed. As part of the problem, we can be part of the solution. Myself, along with the Holland Climate Collaborative and others, wish for you to adopt the proposal to cut every Holland resident's greenhouse gas emissions by 50% every 10 years. This is an ambitious goal, but we are an ambitious people. Holland exists because of ambitious people, whether from Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, or Northern Europe, left their homelands to start anew here. Many of the ambitious people dredged the channel to make Lake Mac a shipping hub, allowing businesses like Heinz and others. Those people rose to the challenge. We too can rise to this challenge. As a community, we have power. We have the power to ensure a prosperous environment for our children, and I trust that us Hollanders will do the right thing to cut our emissions in a way that ensures prosperity for my children and yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Shanley Poole. I live at 103 Michigan Avenue. Thank you once again for your continual leadership, and thanks again for allowing me to be here today. I would like to say a few more words about the climate crisis and specifically how it relates to our ALICE population here in Holland. ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed Members of Our Community, and it refers specifically to the ALICE project at work in Holland and Michigan as a whole. They are people earning above the official poverty level but struggling to meet basic needs such as food, housing, or healthcare. And they make up 40% of our population. In the past, and thankfully so, our community energy plan has included things such as incentivizing hybrid vehicles or incentivizing energy retrofits, but much of our ALICE population can't afford hybrid cars or expensive energy retrofits. They suffer more during heat waves, some lack access to good air conditioning and ventilation, and it can be even more dangerous during the winter when choices between paying a heating bill and putting food on the table can be all too familiar. As all of this suggests, 40% of our population, of our friends, our neighbors, our family members, suffer more heavily the consequences of the climate crisis, from borderline poverty to poor nutrition to unreliable transportation. So the question is, what can we, the city of Holland, do to meet this population's needs? When the day comes that you are presented with the strategic development team's proposal, I want you to keep in mind the ALICE population. I want you to ask yourself questions such as, what incentives does this plan provide for homeowners and for home renters? I hope that the strategic development team proposes a plan to work with organizations such as Habitat for Humanity to help Alice homeowners to make affordable retrofits that improve their home's energy performance and personal comfort. I hope that the community energy plan also looks out for renters. This could look like incentivizing landlords. A concrete example would be a house that holds in heat better and lowers the heating bill doesn't benefit the landlord if a renter is paying utilities. Incentivizing landlords to retrofit their homes lowers the economic strain on our Alice population. Keeping in mind innovative solutions is crucial to lowering our carbon emissions for our entire community. As Holland strives towards goals of equity and inclusion, I hope we keep in mind how intertwined this goal is with the climate crisis. And when we make these cuts in emissions, I trust we will do it in a way that is beneficial to all members of Holland. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, item number 7, special order of the day, 7A, CDBG approval of the 2021-2022 annual action plan. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. While I give the introductions, Mark Cornelis can make his way up. I was joking with Mark the other day. I think between the typical CDBG program that we typically run, which is what he's going to present on tonight, and all the additional funding that came through the CDBG, you've seen Mark as much as any other staff members recently. But he continues to do a great job for us, and he'll walk you through the presentation and the recommended action tonight. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thanks for carving out some time on what I assume is a pretty full agenda tonight. So yes, as City Manager mentioned, this is a customary item on your docket every year about this time to approve the annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant Program. The process that we followed to develop this plan this year was very customary as well. In January, we go out and seek public input on what are the priorities in the community around community development needs. We have conversations at the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. I'm gathering information from leaders of nonprofit organizations and all those sorts of things. We're kind of analyzing the programs that we're already funding and looking at data. And that results in the formation of a plan that follows HUD's format. And that's what's before us tonight. The plan seeks to prioritize what are those community development needs that we feel like are the most pressing, that do fit within the community development ability to address those needs. We certainly try to align the annual plan with the 5-year plan that you folks approved about this time last year, certainly. And of course, our plan tries very hard to adhere to the CDBG rules and guidelines. The next slide is really the heart of the plan, what our budget looks like for the July of 21 to June of 22 fiscal year. Again, very much exactly in line with what was passed last year in terms of the 5-year plan. I don't think there's any surprises there. The priorities are continuation of the city's home repair program, which does incorporate the home energy retrofit component. A modest amount of investment potential for public improvements. We are looking at a sidewalk project on the far south side of town on Central. We're hoping to restart the youth employment program, which was put on hold last year because of COVID concerns. And then last year, we started funding at a pretty modest level some homeless assistance projects, both at Community Action House and at Good Samaritan Ministries. And then for many years running, we have funded the Fair Housing Center out of West Michigan to provide services in our immediate area. And then, yeah, just back to the next slide. I'll just reiterate again how we came about developing the plan, the public input, the Neighborhood Improvement Committee input, It was put out for public notice, and we had a 30-day comment period between April 5 and May 6. And then prior to you voting on it tonight, we will have one more public hearing this evening. So that's the plan in a nutshell, and I'm open to questions, if there are any.
Questions from Jay?
Can you go back one slide, Mark? Our home repair program and the home energy retrofit program. How would you break that out? Is that those two things are coming out of that 182,000?
Yes, they used to be separated, but the home energy retrofit program, more so than the home repair program, tended to have some highs and lows associated with it. We had some good years where we spent quite a bit of money, and then a couple of years where spending was pretty low. So putting it into one pot just means that the city has to go back into the HUD database and make adjustments in those budgets. Just creating one pot for that same, I mean, it all falls under home repair in a global sense. So it's just a budgeting simplicity, really, to keep the budgeting portion more simple. But the same amount of funding, in theory, is there for both components as we have had in the past.
The outcome goal of 40 households assisted, that's 40 households, some might be home energy retrofit,
Correct.
Some might be home repair.
Correct, yep.
Thanks.
35.5 might be a good guess, 35 in the traditional program and 5 in the home energy retrofit, but it could be 30-10.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Yes, go ahead, Nikki.
And I would want to continue along that same line. That was my question too. Because doesn't the Holland Energy Fund manage that? That gives money to it, and there's there are some criteria to use that money for retrofit. So how does that work?
Yeah,
there
so
with
just a
the low
clarification,
income?
this is one source of CDBG funds for certain people that can go both for the rehab program, and I think you're familiar with some of
Sure.
those that we've done that maybe are
Yes.
larger, like roof repairs
Yep.
and some of those types of things. But then there's also a source of money that could go to the home energy retrofit program. But you also have, and you're gonna have that later on tonight,
Right.
in the Holland Energy Fund, where there's funding that goes to the home energy retrofits also, that's in addition to this funding. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct. The home energy retrofit, a family coming for primarily or principally home energy retrofit changes to their household will be funded first out of the Holland Energy Fund pot. And then if they are lower income, we'll also be able to supplement some of their costs with the CDBG funds.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah, I'm really kind of surprised no nonprofit made a, recommendation for how to use these funds or responded to you on this. I'm just kind of surprised. But can you explain a little bit about the home repair program and Holland Energy Fund retrofit program to the audience here and those listening? Can you explain a little bit about what happens within that program and also who's eligible?
Sure. The home repair program, well, most people come to us for one or the other, but it's possible that they could come to us for a roof repair and wish to do some home energy retrofit changes to their house. But most come for one or the other. So starting with a traditional, say, roof repair, furnace replacement, we will serve any family that owns their home and their taxes are up to date and a few of those sorts of preliminary sort of requirements if their income falls below 80% of the area median income. And then we have a graduated scale. The lower their income, the more we assist. The lower income households, we're going to probably pay 90% of the project. And there's some technicalities around whether there's lead involved or the total cost of the project. But to keep it simple, we're going to probably pay 90% of the project cost for that lowest income homeowner. About 50% for the next, we'll pay 75% for the next tier up, and we'll pay 50% for those that are in the 50 to 80% of area median band. And we can assist with a wide range of types of home repairs. Furnace replacements, roof replacements are probably the most common. But if there's a dire need for some electrical upgrades, if there's some dangerous electrical components, or similarly on the plumbing side, it has to be somewhat, not urgent, but it has to be a pressing need. On the home energy retrofit side, again, many things will qualify, and as I kind of explained earlier, the home energy retrofit program funds from the energy fund, what's the title of it? The
Holland Energy.
Holland Energy Fund. Those funds are going to come in first, and then if that household also falls within that under 80% of area median, then we'll see if we can offset some of their costs with CDBG funds at a similar rate, the 75% rate, 50% rate, or 90% rate. Is that helpful? I think,
Other question? Oh, go ahead.
And
Keith.
just one thing to add too, because I think this is good education, which is I think why Scott asked. So the community development block grant funds are federal funds that come to us because we're an entitlement community. And one thing that's some, like funds come from anywhere, but these are funds that for the most part, most of these things that we're doing, the funds that we're receiving can only be used for specified things, and these all qualify that way. That's why Mark does this work and makes sure that we're. But another thing to remember is most of the other funds that the city has, like our general funds that we raise through taxes or other things, most or a lot of those cannot be used for these types of services. So that's why we really try to target these funds for these particular things, because we don't have other funds available to do that work.
yeah, and for the sake of brevity, I left out a slide that I might commonly go over, which lists what are the caps. We can spend a certain amount on public services, which is only 15%, on things like the homelessness assistance or the youth employment program. We're very limited in the amount of funds we can allocate for those sorts of programs. There's really no limit on housing or public infrastructure sorts of improvements, and there is also a final cap on administration.
Any other questions for Mark? Yes, go ahead, Quincy.
So you mentioned youth employment and training. I know at one time we were partnering with Escape Ministries, and we've transitioned to, I believe, the Boys and the Girls Club.
Correct.
Looking at, I guess, could you explain that a little bit, and also the homelessness assistance?
Yep. I'll start with homelessness assistance. And I think the way I explained it a year ago when we put it into our 5-year plan is that when we write the 5-year strategic plan, it's pretty clear that HUD, while not mandating it, really expects communities to be doing something in the area of homelessness. And we were not directly, and I felt like that was a bit of a gap in our plan. So, through our normal channels, talking to the community, talking to the Neighborhood Improvement Committee, talking to staff, we decided to put a modest amount in there for a couple of programs that are on the newer side in the community. A homeless outreach program administered by Community Action House, and a program at Good Samaritan Ministries that's trying to rehouse particular families. And there were some gaps in some of that funding, and there were some ways that the city funds could provide a little bit of extra funding for on the Good Samaritan program that would otherwise not be eligible because other funding sources didn't allow that 50 to 80% AMI window. Anyway, so I just felt and made the case to all of those audiences and to this group eventually that it would be prudent to support those programs. Youth employment, I don't have a long history with some of the changes that were made. Yeah, there was a time when some of these funds were supporting, I think, both the Escape program and the Boys and Girls Club. And then for various reasons, it was decided to look more closely at the Boys and Girls Club program. That doesn't need to necessarily be a long-term decision, but for the sake of, building off of last year when we had an agreement to contract with Boys and Girls Club, and then that fell through because of COVID. The decision was made just to continue that project for this coming year.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions now. So I know you said we have a small amount for those two programs, percentage-wise. Have we met that threshold for that percentage? And if not, would we be in the future?
The current plan, the plan that's up for approval tonight, is right up against that limit. So there's
Okay.
a 20% cap. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
And while you're looking at that, Mark, remember also, Quincy, and Mark mentioned that both of those types of services in the community have other sources of funding also, especially homelessness. It's called a continuum of care. I think I have that right, Mark?
Yep.
Where there's federal and state funding that support the organizations on the front line that do the majority of that work. In our case, it's someone that we know well that coordinates that, and then a couple organizations. So there's other funding. Mark described it well, where this is just some gap funding that we were able to meet that, but we're up against those caps with the use of our CDBG funds.
All right, last question. For the youth employment, do we utilize those for, I guess, for city employment? And I ask that based off of looking at everything now, with people having a hard time finding employees and understanding that in the summertime, city uses part-time employees. And that's it.
Yeah, the intent is for it to be both an employment and a training program. So we are paying for city youth that fall under that lower income, one of those lower income thresholds, to be employed by Boys and Girls Club doing work. And I think they traditionally do the work within the city. I don't know if I'm answering the question fully, but that's the intent, to employ city youth to work in the city at a wage. But in addition to the employment, there's a training component tied in with the program.
All right, that's exactly what I was wondering. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, what is preference of council in regard to the CDBG approval of the 2021 and 2022 annual action plan?
Mr.
We need a
Mayor,
public
I
hearing first.
apologize. It's a public hearing.
Thank you, got ahead of myself there. So we do need to do a public hearing on this, so if there is any member of the public who would like to speak in regard to this item, this is your opportunity to do so. So I'll open the public hearing. And please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. Ken Freestone, 845 East 8th Street in Holland. I just thought I'd add a little bit to the home energy retrofit conversation, since I have a little experience with that. Just give you one example of a household that received CDBG funds and the home energy retrofit, Holland Energy Fund support. There was a single woman. She lives on Social Security and a little bit of disability, owns her home, small home, 1,100 square foot, in really, really bad condition. Needed a lot of work for the retrofit. It's about a $14,000 project. Between the money we were able to offer for the CDBG to assist her because she qualified as far as the income, the grants through the Holland Energy Fund, a little bit of, I think, additional funds from Home Corps were there to help her. We brought her total project down to a little over $6,000. And then she had on-time payments with the BPW, with her utility bill, so she qualified for on-bill. Brought her payments down to $48 a month for 15 years, and she said, I can afford that. She could not afford all the other things, $14,000, nope. You know, little steps along the way, but when we brought it down to $6,000, that was affordable for her. So finding ways to spread that money around and partner with other organizations to make that happen, there are ways we can help. So again, $48 a month, and tightened her home up so nicely, and it looks fantastic. And there's one other homeowner that I know that was actually a renter in Stratford for many years. They bought a home, and they used the CDBG funds at a couple of stages for some projects, and then they used the home energy retrofit program. Then they used a little bit more CDBG funds, and they were able to do it little by little over about 7 years. And they've completed just about all their projects in their home, but it was because of the CDBG funds and then the grants from the home energy retrofit program that made a difference. So just wanted you to know that there's a lot of support out there, but there are ways to kind of help people through that step by step. So anyway, there's just a little history on that.
So does someone come to the city then and ask and?
Yeah, it's
Then
usually,
Mark will carry
well,
on.
when I did talk to homeowners, and this was a recommendation from a daughter who had the retrofit done and said, Mom, you should do this. We think you can do this. I was able to talk to her and walk her through that. When they had the original audit and it came out at $14,000, it's like, whoa, I can't, no way I can do that. I said, no, let's work through this. Let's take a little bit of this, a little bit of this. And in those CDBG funds, they're also, because they're federal funds, we're required to do lead assessment and also asbestos assessment. And so if there are some needs for that, we can direct some funds to help with that also. So it's a matter of guiding people through that process, because the dollar amount sounds huge, which it is, but again, if you can walk them through the process and again, help them connect with a couple of different organizations, making a call to Home Corps, getting a little application in, oh yes, there's some additional $2,000 here, great, we can help out with that. So little steps, but there are a number of resources in the community to help out with that.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Freestone.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak at the public hearing in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Now it is the time for a motion. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Motion to adopt the plan for the use of the community development CDBG funding for the 21-22 fiscal year. Authorize the mayor to sign the required applications for the federal assistance form and all required certifications on behalf of the city, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the anticipated CDBG grant agreement and funding approval form as to form with the city attorney.
Well said right off the top of your head. I appreciate that, Mr.
Could you
Trethewey.
repeat that?
Unrehearsed.
Support.
That's moved by Trethewey, support by Byrd. Is there any discussion other than asking him to repeat that word for word? All right, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters?
Yes.
Trethewey?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Next item on the agenda, item 7B, Finance Fiscal Year 2022 Budget. Adopt the resolution. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. A big night. Some would say one of the most important, if not the most important thing that Council does every year. So although that we've spent two sessions considering just the proposed budget and many, many more sessions prior that in the community and you giving direction into building the budget, it seems like we should take at least a few moments to give just an overview of that. So I'm going to take a few moments. Finance Director McCammon will take a few moments. And then remember that also as part of this budget, you have the Board of Public Works budget and the rates associated with that also. Dave is here to answer any questions if they come up, but on this, he's not going to make a presentation unless asked. So, just a reminder on the process that, as I said, a lot of work has gone into this. January with the community and then staff presentations to all of you, your council goals, our budget document, our budget review sessions. Here are the strategic and business plan goals that came out of your strategic review that I think we have addressed either in an ongoing fashion in work that has been multi-year, but certainly I think is also addressed in the budget document before you this evening. Lynn's going to talk to this a little bit more, but just as a reminder, you have total sources, and I'm looking at of all funds, 183 million, and uses 177 million, and again, disproportionately, a lot of that is our utility. Our general fund revenues, 26.4 million. And the expenditures, 26.6 million. And remember when I did this budget review presentation, usually those numbers balance. And this is one of those years where that number does not balance. So let's just highlight and talk about that. COVID definitely has had budget impacts in years that we've already experienced. But we know that in the government sector in particular, from experiences, sometimes remembered harshly in the Great Recession and others, that budget world impacts quite often lag in how they impact local government. So we've had loss of revenue in different places. We definitely had increases expenses. While we've had some federal grants and maybe some discussions of future federal grant dollars that can maybe partially offset that, we do know that there is still uncertainty and cause for concern moving forward. So what we did in making this presentation to you earlier and what we're proposing for you to take action on tonight is that actually we have a budget that uses the budget stabilization fund, which is kind of like it's the rainy day fund, if you would, to the tune of we'll call it $225,000. We'll round down just a little bit. And we think that's a very appropriate approach this year. But it is to be noted that we're kind of in a deficit budget. Now, the way that the finances work is that actually using that ultimately says that we have a balanced budget, but definitely want to note that we're using budget stabilization fund in order to achieve that. So looking forward, we think that there's also, with the caution that I just talked to you about, that we're also very positive about the investment that we're able to make in this budget in a multitude of different ways, not only continuing to address unfunded pension liabilities, but being able to continue to invest in our infrastructure, both in kind of the real nuts and bolts type things of our water and sewer and roads, but also in those amenities that I think we all love to offer to our citizens in parks and downtown infrastructure and in some of those areas where really I think we want to and need to continue to invest and take care of. So thankful to you and prior boards that with strategic planning and a history of conservative management and also a lot of hope because we continue to have strong development interest in our city, we've been able to do that. Again, very few new investments, what I would say. One of them is we've talked about that in the police department. That's the only general fund addition of one position that would manage, and then we're taking a look at implementing body cam system to supplement our dash cams and our microphone lapels that our officers have had for some time. I'm going to hand it off now to Finance Director McCammon, and I also want to take the opportunity one last time to just thank Lynn and her team for a fantastic job. Her first budget, I think they did great work. In particular, I think they kind of took a look at a lot of new things and used different ways to present information. The budget in brief in particular, I think, is a fantastic way. It's kind of the executive summary of the executive summary for residents to be able to digest what we do at a very high level. So thank you, Lynn, and if you can tell me when to advance the slides for you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Thank you for having me here this evening. Yes, thanks to Keith for providing a broad overview. I just want to add a few more items, dig a little deeper into the general fund since it is the main operating fund for the city. And what I would like to begin with is budget stabilization chart, which is up on the screen. And it's budget stabilization and the general fund, we're looking at the reserve position. And the reserves are important. It's kind of like our personal savings account. We want to make sure we have enough so when we're presented with unforeseen challenges, we can weather the storm without making rash decisions. And as we all know, COVID-19 was proved that we really needed to have that. So you can see the city's had a very strong reserve position in its history, and the conservative management of finances has helped that. And even though we're going to have a challenge in this coming year, as you can see, we're still going to end up at our target level or slightly above, which is 20%. So that should allow us to continue to be able to make sound decisions and have time to do so. Next slide. just a little bit more information on the overall revenues and expenditures for the general fund. This year, we can see by revenues by source and expenditures by classification, they're very similar to the prior years. Because like Keith said, we did not have a lot of new things in this budget because we're really trying to make sure we live within our means. And so when we look at the revenues, again, property taxes accounts for almost 42% of our revenues. And we're fortunate that we've seen those hold, unlike the recession in 2008-9. And then intergovernmental revenues, which is our state sharing sales tax and our personal property reimbursement, that represents 21%. And it was initially thought that it would have more of an impact, but given that the sales just moved to online, that revenue source still came in. So it hasn't been as impacted as we were initially concerned it could be. And finally, the dividend from BPW represents the transfers in, and that's about 23%. On the expenditure side, total expenditures are about 2% higher than the prior year. And really, again, it's not a lot of new requests as we can see, but the costs are primarily related to continued challenges in funding our pension costs. But the city continues to work on that. And we've just been hit by a couple actuary changes, which are kind of out of our control, but we're still managing to keep up. So next slide. So a big part of our revenues, as we talked about, is property tax. So I'm happy to show this chart because even though we know we had struggles getting our budget balanced this year, you can see in this chart, again, reminded that property tax is over 40%. And in fact, we've been able to once again propose to keep the rate the same as it was in the prior years. And we've done that for the history. Where it falls off a little bit in the way past, that's because the library changed we're no longer including the library. So the state of Michigan actually has laws that limit property tax increases. And each year the city has to complete a somewhat complicated calculation to ensure that the city's proposed rates within the guidelines, and another calculation to illustrate what additional revenues the city will receive from the proposed rate. And all those are in the complete document that's available online. But as you can see on the slide, I just want to highlight a couple of things. As you can see, the city authorized rate is actually 17.5. And one of the rollback calculations is called the Headley rollback. And if that kind of tells us what the limit could be under that calculation, and that would come in at like 15.2983. But again, good news, the city is actually maintaining the rate of 13.7742 for the current year. So really, what does this mean? Well, for most taxpayers, the total tax bill will only increase by the increase in the CPI. So for the year that we just are proposing the budget, that increase is 1.4%. So if you look at the next slide, it's summed up like this. So we do this annual survey where we kind of look at what our rate is compared to 55 of our neighbors, and we are the 16th lowest. And if you actually looked at the 16 that are lower than us, several of those actually have income tax revenues, which we do not. So it's almost like we should really kind of exclude those. But the chart was really lengthy, so I didn't want to put a really small chart like it did last time. Sorry about that. But we can look on page 29 for anybody who wants to look up that information. It's kind of interesting sometimes to look at. But that is all I wanted to highlight for the general fund. Thank you again.
Any questions for staff? Yes, Quincy.
First of all, great job with the budget this year and presenting it to us. I was looking at the first chart, the bar chart with the general fund, and talked about stabilization funds. I don't know if I'm reading it right, but is it showing that we used the stabilization funds from 16 to 20 as well?
Oh, so the budget stabilization and the general fund, they're both kind of considered in financial reporting as really your general fund reserves. They're sub funds and they're combined to one fund, and both funds combined, we have a 20% kind of recommendation, and that's why they're both there. So the line that goes across is where it's kind of the ratio that it's maintained at. So we've never dropped below the 20%, which is what the target has been. I'm sorry if I did not quite answer
I
the
think,
question.
Lynn, maybe I'll take a shot at it too. The line there, Quincy, fluctuates more because it's a calculation of the money in our fund balance as compared to the size of the budget in a given year. So as the budget fluctuates, then the percentage fluctuates.
Okay, I got it.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff members? All right, great, thank you. And we're going to do the public hearing on this one now as well. So if any member of the public has a comment that they would like to make in regard to the fiscal year 2022 budget, this is your opportunity to do that. I will open the public hearing. Seeing no one interested in speaking on this item, I will close the public hearing. And what is the pleasure of council?
Move that we adopt the budget resolution.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
There is support.
Support by Trethewey. Any discussion by council? The only thing I would like to say is, again, thank the staff, thank Lynn, Keith, all the members of your staff for doing a great job on this year. Yes, and thank you also for pointing out that we are using that $200,000 from the Budget Stabilization Fund, but this is an unusual year, and as we talked about in the previous meetings with this, not something that we want to repeat, but something that's necessary this year to be able to maintain services and continue that investment. So, great. Thank you again very much. Great job. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin, Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters, Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Kathy. Item 7C, Holland Energy Fund Fiscal Year 2022 Budget. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you. You might ask, why is this not part of the other budgets? And it's because it's actually stood alone as a 501c3. So it has to be adopted separately. So I'm going to ask Lynn to come back up and give just a 2-slide presentation on the budget source of funds and uses as projected in this coming year.
Okay, good evening again. So as Keith mentioned, this is a 501c3 nonprofit, and a major focus of this fund is actually supporting the city's long-range community energy plan, and mostly through the use of the home energy retrofit program. So first we want to look at the budgeted source of funds, and we see contributions of $325,000. So that actually is made up of $275,000 contribution from the city that we normally do. And then this year we included an additional $50,000, and that is going to be used to help support the initiatives of whatever comes out of the strategic development team discussions. So then the other remaining interest income, $73,800. So the on-bill program, loan program is part of this retrofit. It provides residents the opportunity to finance it through their utility bill. And so a little bit of interest that supports that program is what represented in the interest income. Next slide. On the uses side of it, expenditure side of it, we see that, again, the major focus is the home energy retrofit program. So that $252,000 is for the rebate programs. And then this year we have a new sustainability manager, and he is just joined us within the last couple months, and he's busy helping work on some new ideas. We had one planned for the last year, but as you might recall, COVID really kind of impacted, and this program you have to go into people's homes. So when you have to go into people's homes, it really, we just kind of had to navigate COVID during those times. So that did kind of cause us to put a hold on the focused little plan we were gonna do, but that again will be coming back this year. So the on-bill loan program, the expenses related to that is we do have to have a loan servicer that we pay and some other fees. So that's what the budget related to the on-bill loan program is. And you'll see 173,600, and it says Community Energy Plan. And that, again, includes a placeholder of 100,000 for a consultant to, when we decide what we need to do to help the outcome of the strategic development team efforts, as well as some educational opportunities and training opportunities. And finally, the interest and the administration. There's very little administration, like 3,000, and so the rest is really interest costs that are related to, again, those on-bill loan programs. So I would be happy to answer any specific questions. I think there's a lot of people already answered, thank you, on some of the prior discussions.
Yeah. Lynn?
Lynn, could you describe the SEAL team pilot? I noticed there's 2 lines for 2 programs, incentives at 100 homes, and then the SEAL team pilot at 30 homes for
So
3,500 each.
Good job,
Sure.
Lynn. All right.
So, okay, so sure, the SEAL team was that project that was being planned last year, and it was going to pick focus on a specific area. And whereas the home retrofit is more for items you have to spend 10,000, this was going to be an opportunity to get maybe a whole neighborhood, and it maybe do lower cost ones. But if you had more, it's the law of averages. If you can get 20 people to sign up for something, you might get a better cost, and so we might get more results from doing that. So again, of course, we had just initiated that, and COVID hit, so that was kind of put on hold. So we're hoping now to bring that back in some fashion, and that's what that program would be.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions in regard to this item? Yeah, Jay?
We've budgeted $100,000 for the community energy plan to support the work of the strategic development team.
That's correct.
I've not been privy to all of those meetings, but what if they came up with something that was a bit more beefy than that? Surely we can review this.
Right. So that the $100,000 was a placeholder because, again, we really don't know, but we wanted to make sure we put something in. But just like the city budget, we can come back and make budget amendments at a later date throughout the year. Once more information, and that's the purpose of a budget amendment. Once we have better information, that's what we could do.
Yeah.
if we had to adjust it.
Well, I just don't want that. It seems like a pretty limiting number based on the challenges we placed before them. Think big, think bold. Climate change, where are we? There's a lot of very big support in this community, and we're passing a budget here before we have anything from that strategic development team. So I've brought that up before. It still concerns me. The other question I have is the on-bill loan program. Ken made a comment earlier about a woman who, because she qualified because of her income, but she also qualified because she'd made all her payments to the BPW, that allowed her to get on-bill financing. I know you haven't been here forever, so can you give us an idea of what the qualifications are to be part of the on-bill financing program?
Okay, so I probably won't get them all right, but Dave is here to join me.
Go ahead.
I'll just let Dave. I know you have to be current on your bills. And then we have actually a loan originator who does work with them to get all the other qualifications, but.
Yeah, it's pretty simple that it's 12 months of on-time bill payment history, no tax delinquencies, and no bankruptcies within, I can't remember the exact time frame, but there's a time element associated with bankruptcies as well. So those three, and you're in. So it's pretty easy underwriting compared to, going through a standard underwriting process for a mortgage or a home equity line of credit.
The loan loss reserves, I see we've got 30,000 budgeted in case there's loans that we lose money on. How much money have we lost on the loans the way we've been distributing them?
Fortunately, I'm not aware of any loss, unless Dave knows different, but we have not lost anything. But So we don't have it budgeted actually this year. It's kind of sitting in the reserve portion for it to just have a reserve. But this year we did not have to add any to it because we haven't had a history of losses.
How many loans have we got out roughly?
I don't know that I know the answer to that, Jay.
Current.
So current loans, I don't know the answer to that.
We have had a lot of payoffs this year because people were able to refinance. So when they were financing, they just paid off this loan too and rolled it into their mortgage because of the low rates that are obviously with refinancing.
Do you have a sense that there might be more people who would take advantage of that if they made 1, 2 payments were late to the BPW, that they disqualified themselves, and that would help us get our numbers up? Because I know we've got some goals that we haven't made in the last few years. Would that help?
Yeah, so the Holland Energy Fund has had that discussion at a couple different times and taking a look at, should we make tweaks? Can we look at some of that data? And at this point, the fund board has decided to, I think we made just 1 tweak to some of the qualifications, but
Yeah.
otherwise has held at that.
We actually made two changes, 2 tweaks to it.
Yep, and I'd like to say earlier too, Jay, you asked about the community energy plan line. Really, that 100,000 that we've parked is really more consultant support for the strategic development team and then potentially the steering committee that would get started on projects. Not necessarily that this was intended or is looked at to implement potential programs that could be recommended by the SDT to all of you. So it was really more that consultant assistance, particularly one that we've talked about that I think we've communicated to you is a project that would have a little bit larger price tag that would look specifically at the transportation sector and kind of going after some consultant assistance to go at, I think, is it 17%, Dave, is from the transportation sector, kind of as a contributor to our carbon footprint? 12, all right. So just one other thing that you'd mentioned earlier, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just got a little information to clarify that the underwriting was actually relaxed a little bit over a 2-year period. I think there's either 1 or 2 payments that could be missed in that period of time. And also, in addition to that, otherwise, if you have a 680, I think it is, credit score, that is also a way of getting into it if there's, other issues.
Is that currently in play?
I believe it is. In play, meaning that's what we're using, but again,
Yes.
the fund board has wrestled with this over time,
Right.
and that's where they're at in terms of the program administration as far as
So
qualification.
you could be a day or 2 late on 2 bills in the course of a year,
Over a
and-
2-year period of time, I can't remember exactly how that goes.
over 2 years.
Yeah, but again, the fund board has wrestled with that, and that's what they have, put in place for the program administration at this time.
And one further thing on that, actually, we work with an entity, Michigan Saves, and there have been a couple times when they were not qualified for the on-bill program, and we've been able to help them, steer them with Michigan Saves, and they've been able to obtain financing through them.
Yeah.
So,
I understand that. What really paid my attention to this was I didn't qualify for the on-bill financing. I was ready to spend whatever I needed to on this big old house in the historic district because I wanted to be part of the program. But I was one payment, one time over the course of the year because I was on vacation, didn't qualify. So I had to wait 8 months before I could catch up and have 12 months again. I don't know how many people are like that. I've lived in the house for 30 years. My credit score is over 750. And the point of that is, I think I've talked to the Home Energy Board before, some of its members. And I really think that if we believe that home energy retrofits is a way to educate people and get people more engaged in energy efficiency and savings and landlords and do all this stuff, I know that the housing stock isn't the biggest piece of the community energy footprint we have. I get that. But I do see it to be a pretty significant educational tool. So I know, I'm very glad to hear that we're willing to look at someone. I think length of time in their home is important. I think that the just the sheer fact of 2 years being late twice. We're talking late, we're talking by a day. And it just seems like we've got some pretty stringent rules in place if we really want to encourage people to take great advantage of the on-bill financing. Now, I worked with Ken on that, and he said, yeah, you didn't qualify. Why? What do you mean I didn't qualify? Well, okay. Well, don't worry, you can go to Michigan Saves. I had never been to Michigan Saves in my life. It's a credit union in Ann Arbor, and they never heard of me, and I got approved in 15 minutes. But I wanted the on-bill financing piece of that, because it's not part of your credit score. There's a huge piece of this that I think I've heard people complain about. Now, how many? I don't know. How many people have been turned down? At one time we did the numbers, it was a fair amount. We're not getting to the numbers we want to be. I'd like to implore the group one more time to look at that and find a way to spend some of this money and help people with their on-bill financing and make it work. So hope you can help with that.
I will be happy to take your comments back to the
Bring it on.
next
Bring it
board
on.
meeting for the Holland Energy Fund.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for staff? And what is the pleasure of council in regard to the Holland Energy Fund fiscal year 2022 budget?
Did we have the public hearing?
Oh, public hearing. I'm sorry, forgot about that again. Got so excited about the on-bill financing program. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak in regard to this at the public hearing? I will open the public hearing now. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Now, what is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Motion to adopt the budget and the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Trethewey. Motion by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Hoekstra. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin. Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, Trethewey.
I'm not gone yet. Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next item, item number 8, unfinished business, transportation services, traffic change, 2 no parking requests. Mr. Van Beek.
I'm just going to hand it right off to our Transportation Services Director, Brian White. Thanks for hanging in there with us tonight, Brian.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Box. Good evening, council members, members of the audience, and those of you who are tuning in remotely. As we do with all of our proposed traffic changes that are regulatory in nature, we bring those before you. Those get tabled as a matter of routine, and it gives us an opportunity to reach out with notices to the property owners that are around the proposed traffic change areas, so they can have an opportunity to comment on those. And so we're in the second step of that process. The 2 changes that we are recommending are up on the screen there. The first involves some no parking at the end of 36th Street to the west of Washington Avenue at a cul-de-sac there. And then the other proposed change is at the intersection of 20th and Maple, the northwest quadrant of that intersection, where we're proposing some parking restrictions there from a line of sight standpoint. So I'd like to just share with you, I'm not sure if you've received a copy of this, but we did receive one response letter dated May 11th from Miss Erica Camp at 172 West 20th. So this is in regards to the proposed change at 20th and Maple. And basically, if I could summarize, she has indicated here that she appreciates that the council's taking a look at it. However, she doesn't feel that it's going far enough with regard to the proposed restriction. And she basically looks at this from a couple of different angles in terms of the duration of the parking or overnight parking, in terms of timing, and then also the extent to which we're proposing the parking, should there be more spots. So I can tell you just anecdotally, being part of that traffic committee and the discussion, we too did deliberate that at the traffic committee level. Is this enough? Basically at this point. We typically try not to get into, in terms of addressing the timeframes of the restriction. We try and keep that uniform across the city, just because we don't want to confuse or create a lot of individual circumstances with regard to how we handle public parking. So we'd like to avoid creating kind of a unique area here and just keep it the standard that we use around town for on-street parking. So with that, I would just propose that we continue with the recommendation. I would propose that we can circle back with Ms. Camp and have further dialogue with her to see if we do need to go further with this. One thing I would caution, though, is that there is a proposed change in use here at the corner of 20th and Maple. And it's always probably good practice to see how that wants to interact in the public space there before we go and change too many things out there. Let's get an understanding of what that new use will do and how it will affect the way things operate out there. So I guess from that context, with that in mind, I'd propose that we just continue with the recommendations as they were proposed by the traffic committee, and that we could continue to look at that area at 20th and Maple in particular, particularly after that new use occurs. So that's what I would recommend at this point. So happy to answer any questions.
Yep, Mike.
We look a lot alike.
You do look a lot alike. It's the
Brian,
mask.
in all due fairness, this letter from Ms. Camps was referenced in two different parts in number 8 and number 9. We got the email that says, please see the attached letter and my thoughts regarding we did not get an attachment.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we can make that. I think Brian summarized
I'm
that
just-
well, and
In all clarity,
Sure.
we'll add that to the packet. I think that was just a oversight.
So,
Yep, go ahead, Nikki.
so my question would be, you said, and I don't disagree, that let's just create this as is, as we do usually, and then, oh, here's the letter. It could be changed if it so seems like it would be appropriate. Is that an easy change? Do you come back to council?
We do, yeah. We would basically follow the same process that we have to this point. One other thing I think it's worth noting, there was a crash referenced in the letter, and it's a fairly recent fender bender that she references. I went ahead and just looked at the last 10 years worth of crash data. There have been 3 crashes at this intersection. All 3 of those crashes would not have involved this particular situation based on the angles and the directions of traffic. So to try and clarify that, the proposed restrictions here, even if we went further, wouldn't have solved the issue of these last 3 crashes. I don't have the data yet for the one that she references that occurred more recently. And so obviously we can take a look at that as well. But what I'm trying to say here is that from a historic standpoint, 3 crashes over a 10-year period is a pretty good track record, generally speaking. So anyway, just some context there as well for your background.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So those parking spaces are just like any other public spot, and so overnight parking is not allowed over the winter.
Correct. Now, she references here something that I think is probably more of an enforcement situation than it is anything else. So.
Well, I do appreciate that the traffic committee will reassess it.
Sure.
Because I think the planning commission was also concerned about those parking spots, although it wasn't our purview to discuss it. So.
Sure.
Happy to see that you're going to be talking about it again.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions, comments from council members? Great. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I believe we need a motion to take this off the table. It's my understanding is we tabled this at the last meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Hoekstra, support by Aaronshorst. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
We're handling both of these at once.
Or do we want to do both at once, or do we want to do one at a time?
We're just doing the 20th Street. We need to clarify that.
Okay, we'll start with the 20th Street. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the 20th Street no parking?
Move to adopt the recommendation.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Aaronshorst. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then what is the pleasure of council in regard to the 36th Street no parking?
Is he going to talk about it?
Oh, do you want to, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak on that one separately? My apologies.
Yeah, no, I actually, not a whole lot more to offer there with 36th Street, other than the fact it just prohibitive when cars do park down there from a maintenance standpoint, things like that at the cul-de-sac end. It's pretty tight through there.
Great. Any questions to Brian or in regard to 36th Street?
So that you're talking about snow removal and leaf pickup?
Yeah, it just, anytime we get bigger equipment down there, it's very difficult to get that turned around, so.
And what do you do with the snow anyhow?
Yeah, so the snow actually gets piled up at the end there, so, yeah.
And that's just this side, just east of a new development?
Correct, yes.
So that won't affect that development?
No, it shouldn't.
So
So
this
this
is-
is really the cul-de-sac that we're talking about.
And it's just been an ongoing situation for years and years and years?
It
you're
has,
saying.
it has.
And so now it's suddenly different?
Yeah, I don't know if it's different, it's just come to our attention, and so we'd like to go ahead and move on it. Again, more to facilitate maintenance than anything.
Many of these initially come to us, Nikki, at the request of a resident. Not always, but that's and that's how the traffic committee works, is they review specific situations and make recommendations to you of making some of these types of changes.
And so it'll have to be enforced. So someone will call and say there's a car parked here.
Exactly.
Or you'll come along
Right.
with your
Yeah.
vehicle and.
Yeah, and as long as it's signed, then the enforcement can take place.
Yes, Quincy.
So just to be clear, is this just in the cul-de-sac or is this in the road
No,
itself?
so this is the cul-de-sac.
Just,
Yes,
okay, the
yes.
roundabout area.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Brian? What's the pleasure of council in regard to 36th Street?
Move we adopt the recommendation.
Support.
Moved by Hoekstra, support by Trethewey. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next item, item number 9, written petitions and communications. As we did just mention in the previous item, we do receive written communications from the public, both by mail and at our email address, which has been set up specifically for this purpose, public comment at cityofholland.com. All of the council members receive those. They are accumulated in between our regular meetings, and then we accept those into the record at our regular meeting. We do not read them out loud at our meetings, but we do take them into the record, and council members do review all of those. So I would entertain a motion in regard to our written petitions and communications.
Motion to adopt.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support? Support by Byrd. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
You know, every week there's a fair amount of letters regarding our work with the Community Energy Plan and the Strategic Development Team. Do these go to that group as well?
Yes.
And are
Yes,
they
I
aware?
requested that,
Are
yeah.
they aware of the
Yes.
interest that exists here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Letters go both
Thank you.
places. Because I asked, because it's so many come here. Because people didn't know they should go to the committee, so they go up there.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, item number 10, adoption of ordinances. 10A, Amendment to Ordinance 2-118, fines for municipal civil infractions. Mr. Van Beek?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This was before you as an update one time prior. Both Ron spoke to it, but also our Assistant Director of Community and Neighborhood Services, Tricia Dreyer, outlined a few things. And I've asked Tricia to come and just maybe do an executive summary of the executive summary she gave you last time, just so you're reminded and also the viewing public understands what we're trying to accomplish with these recommended changes. So thanks, Tricia.
Good evening, everyone. We last talked about this on April 21st. I was here at the council meeting. So we have before you today the final adoption of several different ordinance amendments. These amendments basically sharpen some of the tools that we already have in our toolbox. These tools that we use for ordinance enforcement when folks are not following the regulations. The Chapter 2 changes increase the fines for civil infraction offenses. Those offenses would be things like loud noise, music, parties, garbage, inoperable vehicles. And then the changes to chapters 14, 17, and 26 add an additional administrative hearing provision prior to our department revoking a permit or license. A permit or license revocation could be for a building permit, a business license, or an annual rental permit if we're having a lot of problems at a particular rental property. And again, we already have these tools. We're just asking for some minor changes to make them a little bit sharper if and when we need to use them. I think we talked about it quite a bit at the last meeting. We really try hard to gain compliance with the property owner. We don't like to write tickets. We don't like to take people to court. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to do that. So these will help us out when they become absolutely necessary. And then also in the event that we do need to seek legal action, the administrative hearing provision offers the property owner one last step to say their piece, tell both sides of the story, and have their situation heard by an impartial third party who can then make a final decision before we proceed with legal action. That's basically it in a nutshell. So we're talking about Chapter 14 is our excessive service call ordinance. Chapter 27 is public lodging. 26 is public lodging. Chapter 17 is licenses. And then Chapter 2 is the civil infraction fines.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tricia. Questions for staff? Let's take these then individually. Let's deal with Chapter 2 first in regard to civil infractions. What's the pleasure of council? Moved by Peters. Is there support? Support by Raymond. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin? Yes. Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Trethewey?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then the next item, I think Tricia dealt with this one as well, but in regard to chapters 14, 17, and 26, procedures for license and permit suspensions. What's the pleasure of council in regard to this item? Moved by Peters. Is there support?
Support.
I'm going to give that one to Trethewey this time. Support by Trethewey. Any discussion by council members? I just have one comment just to kind of connect a few dots for folks. As we were working through the UDO process with the Planning Commission, one of the things that we did hear quite often in the public comment period had to do with enforcement in regard to rental units and properties. And this is a great response from city staff to sharpen those tools that are already there to provide some more ability for us to be able to do a good job of the enforcement on that. And as we move forward, council, with talking about that UDO process and those questions, I would suggest we keep this in mind as well as something that is a response that the city made. And I think that's a great example of good government, that we weren't necessarily in UDO looking at that enforcement process, but as part of that, those questions were raised and gave us the opportunity to take a look at that and to respond to it. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Trethewey.
Yes.
Arnshorst.
Yes.
Corbin. Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, item number 12, 12A1, utilization of direct purchase bond to refund the remaining electric 2014A bonds. Mr. Van Beek.
Yeah, I'm going to ask General Manager Dave Koster to come up. It's almost like he's completing the triple play here. And what do I mean by that? Because not so long ago, he came forward and was able to share the news that as a community, we were able to retire a significant amount of bonds related to the Holland Energy Park. Tonight, we didn't highlight this yet, but the rates that you adopted as it related to the electric rates were lowered by a percentage that I could name, but I'll let Dave name it. And then this action before you tonight really is a really creative way that they took a look at and are making recommendations to even lower the amount that all of us as residents and businesses pay for our electric rates also. So Dave, congratulations on the triple play.
Thank you, Keith. Mayor, members of City Council, good evening. It is exciting to be here tonight. Appreciate Keith highlighting a couple things that you approved earlier in your budget. One of those is the lowering of electric rates by 10%. Really, we're addressing all customer classes, and that's, I'm sure, welcome news for a lot of our ratepayers in a difficult year. And so that's good news that was made in part by the wise decisions of council and our board. You know, over the years when we issued debt for Holland Energy Park, we allowed for a 7-year call option if things went really well on the development of the plant and on the operation of the plant. And good news is that everything did go very well and even better than expected. And so we were able to utilize that call option, as we brought to you a couple months ago, to retire about $91 million of debt, and that's going to happen this July. What we've since done is looked at the remainder of the debt that's outstanding, and there's about $44 million of debt that would still be on the books on July 1 that would need to be serviced under the current rates that were on those bonds. Well, fortunately, again, thank you to our financial advisor and our finance director, Chuck Warren. In their due diligence, they took a look at that and said, hey, if our plan and our 5-year plan that you just adopted shows that we would retire the remainder of the debt in the next 2 years, why service that over the kind of interest rate that we have on those bonds? Instead, what if we went out for a direct purchase opportunity here with a local bank in order to dramatically reduce the interest that we would face on the next 2 years? And so our board took that information and set them loose on trying to find that. And tonight, really, I'm excited to bring back the news from that. And it's exciting in terms of the additional interest reduction, but it's also exciting to talk about the success story of finding a local partner here in Macatawa Bank, you know, and coming to the table very aggressively to take on the debt that's remaining and allowing us to pay that off over 2 years. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to take an interest rate today that's about 3.8% on the remainder debt and lower it down to 0.39%, so about a 10-fold savings on that interest rate. And as a result of that, it'll save about $5 million for the electric utility going forward. So we're very excited about that. We also are able to release a reserve that had to be put in place for the bonds. And so even though we're retiring or going to be servicing the remaining $44 million, about $12 million of that or so is a reserve fund that we can actually take to pay off the bonds that were first sold back in 2014. So we only need to really borrow $32 million from Macatawa Bank here over the next 2 years. So that's another really good story in that. So just excited to be able to point that out, and I also appreciate the city manager pointing out some of the elements that were in the in a very large and important budget tonight that are related to the rate relief that our customers are going to be able to experience here come July 1. So this is what I have for you tonight. It's a request for a approval of a supplemental revenue bond resolution that's in your packet in order to refund the revenue bonds associated with that by doing a direct placement with Macatawa Bank here in our community. So with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Questions? Quincy? No? All right. Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. What is the pleasure of council? Are we interested in saving our taxpayers another $5 million?
Yes, we are. So moved.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Approved. I'm sorry. Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? I've just got to say, hey, thanks again to Dave, to city staff, to the board of Public Works. It's a wonderful thing to be able to tell the public that we're saving them another big chunk of money. So that's a wonderful thing, on top of a 10% rate reduction and on top of a previous $40 million interest savings. So pretty big year. Yes, Quincy.
Yes, I agree 100%. And again, this just highlights how special of a place Holland is. I'm sure during this COVID time, there are quite a few, probably not many at all, communities that are able to do this. So, man, kudos to you, hats off to you. And again, this is a great community where we have the resources, we have the people in place to be able to take advantage of something like this.
And one additional kudos, thank you, Mike, for reminding me of this as well. Kudos to Macatawa Bank. It's great to have a local partner in this. I think that's fantastic that they stepped up to the plate aggressively to be able to help us out with this. It's great news all around. That's a win-win-win. So, other comments from council members? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Peters? Yes. Trethewey?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin? Hoekstra?
Yes.
Mayor Botts?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. I'm just double checking my agenda. I believe the next item we have is 12.61 gifts, 12E 6.1 gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts. Parks and Recreation Sal Perez Scholarship, $2,000.37 collected from the 2021 softball tournament fundraiser event held on April 16th and 17th, 2021. Revenues totaling $3,088.75. Teams, $2,560. Matt Urban Concessions, $520.50. Matt Urban Cash Donations, $8.25. Expenses totaling $1,088.38. T-shirts, $150.38. Umpiring fees, $938. In-kind donations, umpire wage, Arnie Rangel, $240. And then the Parks and Recreation Sal Perez Scholarship Program, cash receipts reporting dates April 5 through May 2, 2021, $171. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. What is the pleasure of council?
Motion to accept with appreciation.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion from council?
Oh, yes.
Yes, go ahead, Nikki.
Who was Sal Perez? The scholarship program?
I would love to answer that question because I remember Sal very much so. I was a local kid. I had lots of practices and games at the Civic Center, and Sal was always there. Sal was a longtime beloved community member and recreation department employee. And somewhere along the line, I think the initial idea, Matt, was from our recreation department that created this scholarship fund. And quite frankly, there's a lot of recreation and city employees that historically have given to this fund. And as I think it's outlined, that's a fund specifically then that's utilized for the perfect person in memory that offsets some of the fees for our community youth that may not otherwise be able to afford our recreation programs, that they can then participate, and I think it's just a great program.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, item 12E 6.2, Downtown Group. Adopt a resolution of support for the Downtown Holland Social District. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you for a lot of patient members of the audience that I think have waited for this. They maybe would have preferred to have been home a while ago, but hey, they saw some government in action here tonight. Tonight, I'm going to hand it off right away to Matt Van Dyken, Assistant City Manager, who is in charge of what we call the Downtown Group. And so this was a conversation. You had some questions at our initial presentation that Matt's prepared to answer. And also, from a staff perspective, we have both Kara and Amy from the PSD and DDA. So Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, if you remember way back, seemed like a long time ago, before Tulip Time this year, Kara and Amy came in a study session and gave you I thought, a very informative presentation and gathered a lot of your input and made some appropriate changes to the plan to this so that I think, hopefully with your approval, we'll be able to move it forward. What you have before you tonight are actually two resolutions. The first would be a resolution of support that was unanimously recommended to you by both the DDA and the PSD boards to support the Downtown Social District. That's the first piece. The second piece is a resolution authorizing those entities that hold liquor licenses within that district to go then to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission for the approval. So we don't actually approve the liquor license for those folks. That's the Liquor License Commission. You adopt a resolution of support, adopt a list of approved folks, and then that goes on and the process starts. So one of the major things that was kind of modified a little bit within the plan for those downtown social districts is to exclude events and festivals from it being allowed. We heard a lot of concern from you folks, and we've actually had positive feedback from some of those downtown businesses to not have that be available at the Parade of Lights, to not have that be available during the Tulip Time parades. You can think of all the different things that go downtown. Some of that it's just not appropriate, and we heard some agreement from that, so I hope we addressed some of the concerns. There was a concern that was expressed to me that underage drinking would be happening downtown, and I just wanted to share kind of an anecdotal view of mine on that. I was a 16-year-old kid that had fun when I was 16 years old, and the thought—
Don't admit to anything.
I didn't admit to anything specific. The thought of going to a place where either my parents or my parents' friends were likely to be while doing something that was inappropriate would probably not have been a good idea. So just kind of an anecdotal piece on that. I did have a chance to speak with Chief Messer again on this. Chief Messer is remaining neutral in his terms. He did have some concerns about a college town, and we talked about that here. But if you recall, the plan caps that this can only occur up to 11 p.m. So that did, I think, I wouldn't say reassure Matt, but would very much lessen the problem with the college kids. You know, the college kids are out all night. And then Mr. Bird had some questions about benchmarking, and I just wanted to bring back up that, you know, Kara and Amy both spoke directly to Allegan, Petoskey, Northville, Muskegon, and then actually were in a kind of a webinar with the city of Midland. But what I wanted to do is I pulled the sheet of those cities that have approved social districts, primarily in their downtown. And I'm not going to hit them all, just going to hit a few of them, but that would be Cadillac, Port Huron, Three Rivers, Muskegon, Newaygo, Grand Rapids, Rockford, Ludington, Midland, Lansing, Battle Creek, Hastings, Saugatuck, and Allegan. All of those communities have approved social districts. And to my knowledge, none have rescinded those social districts, although there is a process to do that. So I hope that maybe kind of answers some of your questions. So when I think about all the communities on this list, it's a pretty comprehensive list of all the communities in the state of Michigan that actually have active downtowns. I consider our downtown to be the best downtown, not only in the state of Michigan, but also in the nation. And this is just another way that we can offer a very positive visitor experience to those folks that do come downtown. With that, I guess I'll close with we did a survey to the downtown stakeholders, and it was overwhelmingly positive. I believe it was 42-2 that the city pursue this, and those folks were all in support of it. So it is supported from the business level, the PSD and the DDA boards, and now we come to you for hopefully your support.
Questions, council members? Yeah, Quincy.
Did the two give a reason as to why?
I don't recall why. We had some open-ended comments, but that 42-2 is a pretty overwhelming, yeah, we're in favor of it.
Other questions? Scott, and then
I don't know
Dave.
if Matt can answer this, and maybe someone else can. How many people would actually be standing outside an establishment with a 3 to 4 hour wait? These are relatively small buildings or small restaurants downtown. How many are actually standing outside of front of a business for a 3 or 4 hour wait?
I couldn't answer that question. You did have some folks that do have restaurants downtown that are probably behind me wanting to answer your question, but that's not our custom here.
But we do have someone from.
I don't know if Kara or Amy have a shot at that. Come.
Yeah, I would say more likely
Come on
they
up,
would be,
sir.
I think the idea is not to stand outside the establishment as much as it is going to be able to move around in the social commons area with the drink while they wait for their table.
Okay. And did we ever talk about, or is it mentioned about limiting this approval of this for a shorter period of time, just to see how this will work and operate?
So that's really at your discretion. So if we get to a point, the state statute ends on December 31, 2024 currently. But there is a process where if council, DDA, anybody wanted to recommend that we rescind that process, it's literally an 18-hour compliance with the Open Meetings Act publication. You need to hold a public hearing and then you rescind it.
So we couldn't pass this just to run until or expires after December 31st without doing what you said? Can we pass this?
That'd be a legal question that I'm gonna pass off to Ron, because I'm getting out of my lane there.
Yeah, can you repeat your question again?
Can
Scott?
we just authorize this to occur only through, let's say, December 31st of this year? Can we pass this to only allow limited amount of time for it to occur?
I would say yes, you can, because it's discretionary as to whether you even pass it to begin with. So limiting for a period of time would be within that discretion.
So for me, this is a big challenge because I've explained this before. I've had experience with this and different kind of experience than the owners of the establishments. I'm on the other end, usually dealing with the people that just dealing with some of the people that come out of these establishments. And so I just want to make sure, I know you're doing the right thing. You're very responsible businesses. I understand that, but some of the people that come to your businesses aren't. I would like to see us do a trial period on this. I really don't see us just doing this, carte blanche policy or passing this in general without some kind of limitation, just to try this thing. That's my opinion, my feelings on this.
Dave.
Well, yeah, my question pretty much piggybacks with Scott's question. And maybe we can look at the process here. Let's say hypothetically we approve this to go through December 31, 2021. And at that point, we would say we're going to evaluate it, see how it worked, if there was any downside. Would we have to come back to the same place again, the same procedure to reinstate it again for?
Yeah, so a couple things that happen. You'd have to go through this process again, and then all of those businesses would then have to go back to the Liquor Control Commission, pay another fee, and get approval from the Liquor Control Commission.
Okay. But as you said, if we did reach a point where we did see something detrimental and we chose to rescind it, that's a much easier process.
It eliminates a lot of paperwork for a lot of people. That's creeping into that policy piece, right? So I want to stay away from that. But yeah, it would initiate a whole other process where if the resolution only goes to December 31, 21, then we have to come back for another resolution to support, another resolution to approve a list of folks, and then they have to go back to the Liquor Control Commission.
But all of these folks would be out of there. The effective use of their fees paid if we did rescind. Okay, I got it. I appreciate that explanation.
Other question, Nikki?
No, I don't have any questions, but I just think it sounds like a great idea. It sounds like a ton of fun, actually, and you have 25-plus businesses who have been, and we purport to support our downtowns. These are businesses who have been hit hard, and it isn't going to get better real soon, and I think this is just a great idea. This is what a lot of people do, is they could even get a Coke. They don't even have to get a drink, but to be able to walk around is what people do. You wait, and you're either sitting down and waiting, or you're walking around looking inside the windows, window shopping. And I just think it's very fun, and I haven't heard any negative. There always will be, and I see from your point of view. But on a Friday night, a Thursday night, I just think it sounds like something that I would be inclined to do. I was a good student, but I was also like to have fun too.
It's good to know I'm not the only one that just admitted that in front of a microphone.
Quincy?
I was a really good student. I never misbehaved. I just want to clarify that. I completely understand where Scott's coming from. We have done some things in the past that have been on a trial basis. I think one of the things that would help for me to move beyond that is to get a report to see how everything has gone throughout the summer and just an understanding, to get a picture of how it has gone through.
And perhaps a good way for this to happen in a way that's palatable for council, but also doesn't create an extra burden, is that we come back to you in the end of December. Well, maybe we do the beginning of January because Christmas and everything in the end of December. We come back to you for a touch point. And at that point, if things are not going well, you may choose to take the path of rescinding that. But if things are, then things can continue on. And the last thing I want to kind of close with, and I know this is council's discussion time, but the folks that are behind me are not going to allow a kegger to break out on 8th Street, because that's going to damage their businesses. If there's anything that's going on that are caused by the social district that are negatively affecting those businesses, they're going to stop that activity immediately, far before we would be able to even step in. So those folks that have businesses that rely on downtown for their livelihood, they're our first line of defense, and probably our best line of defense against negative behavior, because it negatively affects, or could negatively affect, their business. A bad reputation for downtown Holland is going to be financially devastating for a lot of people, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, Keith?
I will say, just because I think it's an important piece of information, I asked one, and I think it's $300 per business to get that fee to the state to get that. So just as information, it's $300 per, we believe.
Thank you.
How long does that process take?
I think it's, and again, I don't want to step in the policy lane here, but I think the issue is it's $300 that would last till the end of 2024. But if you would set it till the end of 2021, it's like, okay, you could start that process again, but it would be a new $300 at that point. So you'd double up that fees.
Scott and then Lynn. Scott, did you have a comment there? I saw you leaning in. No? Okay. Lynn?
Yeah, I really appreciate the input from the restaurants, because I was one of those people that thought, why would you do this? Like, why would you go downtown to have a drink outside? But that's not the reason why it's helpful. So I appreciate all of that input. And with that input, I can't imagine that people are going to be going downtown so they can drink more. So it does. It sounds like, I mean, you have described this well to me to better understand why this is beneficial, not only to the people who are running the businesses, but to the people who are coming downtown. And also, it's such an important point that it's your liquor license at risk. And so you certainly don't want to lose those. So you've convinced me that this makes a lot of sense all around. And I'm comfortable with the enforcement that's in place and confident that it'll be managed well.
Scott?
So, what Quincy or Councilman Burt had mentioned, I guess I would be in support of that. I guess we'd have to maybe make that part of the resolution, that we would have a quarterly report provided to us by whoever it may be, of what's going on downtown. I mean, we're gonna hear about it in other ways. I'm sure we're gonna hear about it in other ways. We're gonna be exploring it. We're gonna be downtown ourselves. I just think there needs to be some accountability and reporting to us about how it's going, so we can take action appropriately if we see that things aren't going the way we want them to go. So I guess I could support what we're doing here, knowing that we have reports coming to us on a routine basis about how this thing is rolling out.
So the only question, I heard reports, and I think Matt said something about next January, and you just said quarterly. I don't know how much
An example would be up to this board. I mean, I'm just one person here. I'm getting to a point where I might be able to support that. I just need to know that we're getting feedback for how this is going. And I don't know what that might look like, what kind of report that is. Is that litter, about the litter that's going on? Is it about disorderly conduct downtown? Is it, what's that about? I don't know. I mean, I don't know I can articulate that here right at the moment, but I think we need to know what's going on this particular issue.
So we could obviously create whatever kind of a report that you might want. However, the city council does have a DDA appointed a city council representative on both the DDA and the PSD boards. And those two bodies are gonna have their finger on the pulse of this thing, of what's going on, if it's working, or if it's not. That may be the best way for that information to flow back to the rest of the city council. That's the idea of that liaison, right? So that that information comes back to all of you. But I put that as a suggestion, that DDA person, if things are not going right, the DDA PSD city council person, there's a time for motions and resolutions by council members at the end of the meeting, and that could be something that you discuss at that point.
I know, Scott, I've got confidence not only in our downtown businesses, because this is their livelihood, and they have shown a great track record downtown, but also in staff, in keeping an eye on this, because it's not just, again, the council member representative to DDA and PSD, but we've got Amy and Kara, who have the ability to be able to report back to us, and I have no doubt in my mind that if this does not work out well, we're going to be hearing about it. It's going to come up either from the businesses who are saying, hey, we need to stop this, or from staff members who are going to be saying that, or from members of the liaison members, or we're going to be seeing and hearing about it ourselves. And the confidence that I have is that we've got the ability to pull the plug on this in 18 hours. And frankly, could do it in any other week at a regular meeting if we chose to do that. Keith?
I think it's fine, though. I mean, I'll commit to it. Study session, like at end of the year, beginning of the year, or something like that. And if anything comes up in between time, you'll hear about it. But at least let's say once a year, but you can choose to adopt anything you want and tell us how the frequency, but we'll be happy to bring back information to you.
Yeah, I know I would much rather see us adopt it through 2024 and then knowing that we can pull the plug, than ask our downtown businesses to incur even one additional $300 fee in a time period that's already been very difficult for them financially. And I can see where that $300 might be, for some of these smaller businesses, the difference between this being a profitable venture and a non-profitable venture. And then also just even the paperwork to have to go through that. I've dealt with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. That's not a fun process to deal with in any regard. And with everything we do, there's always that monitoring that goes on. There's always that observation and checking in on what's happening. So I'm comfortable with that, and I think that maybe even suggesting that the first one of those come at the end of the summer, so that we, when that's going to be the busiest time period, I think that what happens between October 1st and January 1st is probably not nearly as important as what happens between June 1st and October 1st. That's I know when I would like to see that.
We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. So other questions or comments from council? Mike?
I think a reporting mechanism is specifically, and as Amy and sorry, I'm bringing
Kara.
Kara, thank you, sorry, Kara. Pointed out, this is a resolution and not an ordinance, which is something different for us, a little bit less strategic, I would say. But Scott, you're right. The reporting, we are the final buck stops here. They're the front lines. We're the final buck stops here, so we need to have some sort of feedback before we get to the point where we say, no, we're going to pull the plug. That would be bad press. That would be ugly. That would be he said, we said, they said. So a reporting mechanism of some sort. Ron, I've got a question, and it's been bugging me. Been trying to look it up. We've got open container laws in this state. How can we do this?
Well, by statute, it authorizes people to be able to carry the open container, the cups and such, in the designated areas. And so that statute would preempt the local ordinance that talks about no alcohol beverages on sidewalks and
The
such.
statute or the resolution?
The statute authorizes it, authorizes the city to do it, so, and then allows people to carry the alcoholic beverages
So we're
in the
preempting,
designated area. So that preempts the local ordinances.
we're preempting state law.
No, state law, once you adopt this social district, the state law preempts the local ordinance that prohibits alcohol in the public place.
Okay, all right.
But only for the district, not for all public places.
Correct, okay, thank you, that helps immensely.
Any other comments from council?
I'm not done yet.
Oh, yeah, all right then. Sorry about that.
He's just getting started.
No, and I said to Kara the other day, you know how I'm gonna come down on this, and I've been very, very consistent. What bothers me, folks, and I've never, ever voted against a renewable liquor license in a private establishment. My vote has always been on public property. This one will be no different. What bothers me is the social impact, and we hear an awful lot about that, but why do we have to mix booze in everything? That's what I have a problem with. We're trying to invest in a downtown where we have a family environment, and now we're going to add this one more element. I've been around this town long enough, all 65 years. I've been around with the police enough on some ride-alongs that I've done with. Most people are responsible, and every one of our shop owners are responsible. I have absolutely no doubt about that, and again, that's why I have never voted against a renewable liquor license on a private property. I have a real conflict in what I see, the negative ramifications of people that don't take responsibility for their actions and putting them on public streets and making us liable for them. That's what I have the problem with. I really wish you luck. I hope that it does get contained the way it's supposed to be. I hope it does bring you, and trust me, folks, I understand that you have been through heck and back this year. I wish I could say the other word, but. So I'm extremely conflicted, but I'm going to stand by what I have stood by for all my years on council, and this is on public property, and I'm going to vote against it. There should be no surprise. I have never done anything different on that, and those are some of my reasons. We will agree to disagree, but one vote on council, and I'm gonna stick to my guns on that. So, good luck to you. I hope that the reports come back. I hope that it does do something. I just hope getting people downtown does better. And if we can do it without the alcohol, walking around downtown, I'd love it that much more. But we got a heck of a town here. Let's keep it going. So,
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for staff, comments from council? Otherwise, entertain a motion in regard to item 12E 6.2, the resolution.
I would move we adopt a resolution of support for downtown Holland Social District.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support. Oh,
Support by Aaronshorst.
NJ.
Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Can I, just a very, very quick comment to Brother Mike, his last comments. And then, you know, we've been through so many of these bullets, and I respect your position. The comment you made about why do we have to include alcohol in our activities of life struck a chord with me, and I've heard that before. And I think it was when we had the debate on whether or not to allow Sunday sales of liquor by the glass or whatever, you know, way back 100 years, whenever that was. And it's a valid question to ask, you know. Alcohol is part of our life experience. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. It's a death sentence to some, you know, and it's an enhancement to others. It's one of those things. And I think I made a point way back then in response to, well, why do we have to have this? And what about children? What example is that? And I said, well, you know, consider it a teaching opportunity. You know, as a parent, you have the opportunity to show your children, if you choose not to imbibe on a particular occasion or area, you explain to them why that is. From our point of view, life is better without doing this. For others, it is, you know, so it's one of those things. But there really is no point to what I'm saying here other than to say, I remember that comment, and I guess I appreciate the continuity. But life has gone on since that period till this point. I think we've seen it's been fairly good. I don't think anything's terribly blown up or anything, so who knows, we may experience the same thing with this. But anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Mike. There's a little blast from the past.
Thanks, Dave. Any other discussion? Yes, Quincy.
I have a question. So, and I guess this would go to Keith, or I don't know who this would go to, I guess. So in this, do we need to say anything about a report coming back or no? Or is that just?
I'll give you my personal commitment that sometime at the end of summer, we will, in some way, shape, or form, kind of give you, and I have no idea what's going to be in that report or anything. I don't want to commit to that. But we'll give you a report, kind of like, hey, how did it go, right? At least by the end of summer. And then I think more importantly, kind of beyond then, if there's any indication that there are some things maybe not going so well, we'll either through Mr. Garcia or other ways, we'll share those communications so none of that. Remember that rule, no surprises. We'll be sure to share that information with you. And I don't think you have to make that part of the motion. I've said it publicly, it's on record.
Any other comments from council? I just have one more, and that's thank you to the DDA and the PSD, for staff, for putting this together. Downtown businesses, as Nikki said, we have done our best as a council to try to be as supportive as we possibly can through this. We have faith and confidence in you that you're going to do a good job in being our first line of defense, our best line of defense, but also we do have faith and confidence in staff as well. And in the public to be responsible in regard to this. So thank you for bringing this to us. And Kathy, would you please call the roll in regard to item 12E 6.2?
Byrd? Yes. Peters? Yes. Trethewey?
No.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, 12E 6.3. Adopt a resolution of approval for eligible licensees to pursue the social district permits with the state of Michigan. Matt, turn it over to you.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier, that is the list of eligible applicants. Now that you've adopted that resolution to send on to the state, they can now petition the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to have a license to operate in that social district.
All right. Any questions from council? Moved by Peters. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Yes, Mike?
And just to prove what I said earlier, because that passed, I see this as a private thing. I will be supporting this. Just to prove my point of what I said earlier, okay?
All right. Any other comments from council discussion? No? All right. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters? Trethewey?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Corbin? Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Kathy. Next item, item number 13, communications from the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a couple very quick things. One, deep breath. Tulip Time, I think, was a fantastic hit. There is an element where not only certainly staff, but all the organizations that come together to show off our city and show off, as I'm reminded all the time, the star of the show, the Tulip, I think, was a fantastic hit. We've heard reports from probably some of the same businesses that were here that some of those days and weekends were as good as they've ever had. COVID not withstanding, even without COVID. Windmill Island Garden, we're pulling together some of those reports, so here soon we'll try to give you an overview. But they had, really a return in a lot of ways to some of the numbers that we had seen previously. One of the takeaways that I think I've heard from our staff, from Tulip Time staff, from CVB staff, from businesses is that, we're all looking for silver linings, right, of COVID. And I think one of the things that we've learned is that the crowds probably just kind of extended and like almost self-monitored themselves to kind of spread out over the period of time, which I think has a lot of benefits into it. I think a lot of the people that came walked around town a lot more. I think that gives us opportunities in the future to maybe figure out how to take advantage of that with our partners and have more places throughout town. So maybe they do one more walk that takes them an hour and a half longer that they spend in town, and maybe in the process spend a little bit more money while they're downtown or in the region. I think it made for, in a lot of ways, almost a better experience for a lot of people, just because people are spread out a little bit more and enjoying more of the town and kind of walking around, and your numbers spread out a little bit more. I want to specifically call out our team at Windmill Island Gardens. Especially on the weekends, it was like 2 or 3 times a day I'd drive out there. And just the masses of people walking out and back on the causeway were phenomenal to see in person. I saw I don't even know if I remember seeing unhappy faces. I just saw waves and waves of people with smiles on their face, happy to get out, happy to be out and about. So it was just really a big boost in the arm, I think, for everyone and for this community to open people with welcome arms here and see that enjoyment. The only other thing that I'll mention, again, a little bit COVID related, is that as you probably heard, that 55% vaccination level that the governor and the state has laid out was achieved, so that we are starting to look. We've had, a lot of our staff already kind of been back. We've had a lot of protocols in place. We'll be looking at bringing a few more people back all the time. I think for the foreseeable future yet, just so you're aware and for the public to know, I think we'll probably kind of keep the lobby protocol that we've had in place, at least for a period of time. Rather than changing everything back, we kind of progressed into some of those restrictions and protocols that we have. And I think we'll kind of progress back in the same way. So just if you're wondering about that, that's kind of the plan that we have in place at this point. But we're certainly with, I think, most everybody where we're looking back to doing more returns to normal. So that's all I have tonight.
Great, thank you, Keith. Next item is item number 14, appointments and communications from the mayor. I do have a proclamation this evening. We do these often. This is one that is very near and dear to my heart. Members of the public may not know that our daughter is adopted from South Korea. My sister-in-law is from Vietnam. In recent times, the attacks and violence and hatred toward Asian Americans has hit very close to home. And so I am going to be declaring May Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, AANHPI, is an annual celebration of their rich history and cultures, from laying railroad tracks, tilling fields, and starting businesses, to caring for our loved ones and honorably serving in our nation in uniform. AANHPI communities are deeply rooted in the history of the United States. And whereas what began as Asian Pacific American Week in 1978 has grown to a month-long celebration, and since 1992, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. May was chosen to coincide with two important milestones: the arrival in the United States of the first Japanese immigrants on May 7, 1843, and contributions of Chinese workers to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad completed on May 10, 1869. And whereas Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders make our city and West Michigan more vibrant through diversity of cultures, languages, and religions, the Holland area is home to communities from South Korea, China, Japan, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and many others, as well as 2 Buddhist temples. And whereas Asian-owned small businesses and corporations are an important part of the Holland and West Michigan economy, and whereas the City of Holland stands, especially this difficult year, and will recognize to work toward becoming a more inclusive community in which all residents are respected and recognized for their past, present, and future contributions to our community, the state, and great nation. Now, therefore, in recognition of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders, past and present in our community, I, Nathan Box, Mayor of the City of Holland, Michigan, and members of the Holland City Council, proclaim the month of May 2021 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I urge all residents to participate in events that celebrate our AANHPI brothers and sisters and children's heritage and culture. As a city, we continue our efforts to create a just, peaceful, and prosperous community for all peoples. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of Holland this 12th day of May, 2021. Nathan Box, Mayor. And that is all that I have. Next item, appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Quincy.
I kind of want to echo what Keith said about tulip time. It was really awesome to have tulip time this year. Every day after work, I would ride through downtown and see all the people there. And I was able, last year, I had a problem because I was not able to get my funnel cake. So this year, I got my funnel cake, and very excited and happy about that. And it was just nice to see people out and about in our community during tulip time. Missed the parades, but hopefully next year we have the parades as well. And it was good to see the carnival back. A couple things I wanted to mention as well. So since COVID we're starting to eradicate that and be done with that in a sense. The passports are back as of May 10. So people are getting ready to travel, which is a good thing for the city as well. And then Also, overnight parking starts May 15, so we can park back in the streets, which I'm very happy about.
You're welcome.
And that's it for me.
Thank you, Quincy. Any other communications motions from council members?
No, I'll just piggyback a little bit, continue what you were saying, Quincy, and everyone get vaccinated, and then we can move on. Maybe take off our masks someday. And you won't have to wash the lectern anymore.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. Anyone else? Otherwise, there's just one more motion I will entertain this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Chathui, support by Peters. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.